Story 1. The security guard of Crystal Ridge Mall. I never believed the stories people told about Crystal Ridge Mall. They said it was cursed, that it closed down in the late 90 seconds after a string of unexplained accidents. I thought it was just an urban legend. But when I was hired as a temporary night security guard last year, I found out what really happened. The first thing you notice when you step inside an abandoned mall is the silence. It is not a normal silence either. It is thick and heavy, pressing in from every direction. The air is stale, filled with the faint smell of mildew and rust. My flashlight beam cut across dust-covered mannequins still standing in dark storefronts, their glass eyes reflecting the light like they were alive. The echo of my footsteps was unnerving, bouncing down empty hallways where hundreds of shoppers used to walk. On my third night, I started hearing noises. At first, it was faint, shuffling, like someone dragging their feet across the tiled floor. I thought it was rats, or maybe the wind. But then I heard it again, closer, and it sounded like human footsteps. I called out, but no one answered. My radio fizzled with static, a deep crackling sound that set my teeth on edge. I followed the sound into the old food court. The tables and chairs were all overturned, trays scattered across the ground as if people left in a hurry. My flashlight caught something on the floor near the old pretzel stand. Shoes, dozens of shoes, all mismatched, laid neatly in a row leading into the dark hallway. My throat tightened as I shined my light further, following the trail. The shoes ended at the entrance of an old department store. The gate pulled halfway down. Something was moving inside, just beyond the edge of the light. I called out again, but my voice echoed back to me, warped and hollow. Then the gate rattled violently, as if something on the other side wanted out. My flashlight flickered and went out completely. In the darkness, I heard breathing. Not mine. It was heavy and ragged, right beside my ear. I sprinted out of there, my boots pounding across the tile as the air filled with the sound of dozens of footsteps chasing me. I did not stop running until I burst out into the parking lot. When I looked back, the mall stood silent again, every window dark, every doorway still. I quit the job the next morning. Later, I found out 3 guards before me had gone missing inside Crystal Ridge Mall, and their bodies were never found. Story 2. The explorer who never came back. There is a group of us who explore abandoned places, filming them for YouTube. We usually find old factories, hospitals, or schools. But last fall, we came across an abandoned mall on the outskirts of Ohio called Rockford Plaza. It had been closed for over 20 years, and half of it was sinking into the ground from neglect. The parking lot was cracked and overgrown with weeds. Shopping carts scattered like skeletons of the past. My friend Dylan convinced me to go with him at night to make it creepier. We climbed through a broken side door and were instantly swallowed by darkness. The smell hit us first. Mold, stagnant water, and something else. Something metallic like old blood. The mall stretched out in front of us, shops gutted and escalators frozen in time. We laughed nervously, recording with our flashlights on, making jokes to hide how unsettled we really were. About an hour in, we reached the center atrium where a giant fountain used to be. Now it was filled with stagnant black water, ripples spreading across it even though the air was perfectly still. Dylan leaned over to shine his light on it, and something moved beneath the surface. We both froze. Then a pale hand shot up from the water, grabbing Dylan's wrist. He screamed, dropping his flashlight into the pool. The water churned violently, and I grabbed his other arm, pulling with everything I had. The hand was strong, pulling him down inch by inch. I managed to drag him free, but when I looked at his wrist, the skin was bruised and swollen as if something had crushed it. We bolted, but the echo of footsteps followed us, not matching ours. When we reached the exit, Dylan stopped dead in his tracks. His camera was still rolling, and when I turned to him, he was staring into one of the dark storefronts. His face was pale, his lips trembling. I followed his gaze and saw mannequins lined up along the glass, but their faces had been carved out into hollow holes. One of them was moving, not shifting like it was falling, but actually moving, its head tilting toward us. I yanked Dylan's arm, but he didn't move. He just stood there, whispering something I couldn't understand. I left him. I ran as fast as I could, never stopping until I reached my car. Dylan never came out. His camera was found weeks later floating in the fountain. The footage showed him standing motionless as the mannequin slowly walked out of the storefront, circling him until the video cut off. Story 3. The family lost in Brookside Mall. When I was a kid, my parents used to take me to Brookside Mall every weekend. It was the center of the town, the place where kids hung out, where families ate dinner, where everyone felt safe. But after a fire in the mid-2000s, the mall shut down permanently. 10 years later, I convinced my parents to go back with me just for fun, just to see what it looked like now. We thought it would be a little trip down memory lane, but we never should have gone inside. The mall was rotting. The roof leaked, mold grew along the walls, and the smell of smoke from the fire still lingered faintly in the air. We wandered through the empty corridors, laughing about the stores we remembered. But then my mom stopped suddenly. She said she heard someone calling her name. I thought she was joking. But then my dad said he heard it too, a faint whisper echoing through the empty hall. We followed the sound, thinking maybe it was other explorers. It led us to the old toy store, the one I used to beg my parents to take me to. The shelves were still lined with boxes, dusty and faded. But when I picked one up, it was empty. Every single box in the store was empty. That's when we heard footsteps, dozens of them surrounding us. The shelves began to rattle violently, toys falling to the floor on their own. My dad pulled us back into the hallway, but the lights above us flickered on one by one, even though the mall hadn't had power in years. At the end of the hallway, a crowd of shadowy figures stood shoulder to shoulder, blocking our way out. Their heads tilted unnaturally, their faces nothing but empty voids. My mom screamed, and we ran the other direction. But every corridor we turned into, they were there, waiting. We finally reached the entrance, but when we burst through the doors, the parking lot wasn't outside. It was the food court. We were trapped in some kind of loop. My dad smashed the glass with a chair, and suddenly we were outside again, gasping for breath in the cold night air. We never went back, and the mall was demolished 2 years later. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear faint footsteps outside my window, and I know we didn't escape them completely. Story 4. The final broadcast from Starlight Mall. I used to work for a small local news station, and one night we got a call about strange lights being seen inside Starlight Mall. It had been abandoned since the early 90s after a series of disappearances, but people in town still whispered about it. My producer sent me with a cameraman named Ray to investigate. We got there around midnight. The parking lot was empty, and the glass doors were chained shut, but the glow of fluorescent lights flickered faintly from inside. Ray cut the chain, and we stepped into a place that should have been dead, but wasn't. Music was playing faintly, the kind of generic mall music that used to come from overhead speakers. The air was cold, too cold for an empty building. We walked down the main corridor, our camera light bouncing off shattered glass and peeling posters. Then we saw them. Stores filled with mannequins, dressed in outdated clothes from the 90s, but they weren't in their windows. They were standing in the hallways, lined up on both sides like they were watching us. Their plastic heads all turned in the same direction, facing deeper into the mall. Ray whispered that we should leave, but I told him to keep filming. We followed the line of mannequins until we reached the old movie theater at the back of the mall. Its doors were wide open, the inside glowing faintly with blue light. Against my better judgment, we stepped inside. The theater was full. Every seat had a mannequin sitting in it, all facing the screen. On the screen was footage of the mall itself, live, as if we were watching ourselves from above. Ray panned the camera around, and when the shot hit the screen, we saw ourselves standing there, two tiny figures in the back of the theater. Then, one by one, the mannequins turned their heads to look at us. The doors slammed shut behind us, locking us inside. The footage on the screen changed to show us running, trapped, pounding on the doors. That's when the mannequins started to stand up. Ray dropped the camera and screamed. The last thing the recording picked up was my voice yelling his name, and then static. The tape was found later, left on the hood of our news van, but Ray never came back.